soldier announces the hero's defeat, shouting for everyone to retreat from the monstrous foe. While his fellow soldiers panic, a young gate guard calmly assesses the situation, thinking it's too early for such a major event. A lone mob soldier who secretly became the strongest using his game knowledge steps forward, deciding his intervention won't matter much in the grand scheme of things. The protagonist recalls the world he now inhabits, the setting of an RPG called Brave of Asterisk. He reminisces about the game, where the hero Alan fights demons and forges powerful bonds with his friends, a game he was obsessed with before his reincarnation. He remembers his past life, where exhaustion from his demanding job led to his death. Luckily, he was reborn into the world of his favorite game. Now he lives as Silver, a gate guard in the capital Zelentia. His fellow guard Modi arrives, telling Silver it's time to switch places. As his co-workers leave, one reminds the other about an errand. Silver accepts, reflecting that although he's not the hero, his current life is quite good. He appreciates that he gets paid as a gate guard even if he slacks off, and goes to collect his usual. He reflects that compared to his previous life, this one is practically heavenly. In the market, he sees a shopkeeper trying to upsell a sword to a young woman. The woman politely declines, stating she isn't a swordswoman. Silver recognizes her immediately as Charles Orland, a key character who becomes an early ally in the game. He internally celebrates, revealing that she was his favorite character. The shopkeeper claims it's a holy sword, but Silver knows he's lying and hopes Charles doesn't fall for it. He's overwhelmed with adoration, thankful for his reincarnation that allows him to see her. The shopkeeper calls out to Charles as she leaves. A young man appears, calling the sword a fake. Silver recognizes him as Alan, the game's protagonist. Watching them, Silver feels it strange to see them in person and wonders if Alan will become Charles's lover. As Alan and Charles leave together, Silver is left feeling gloomy. The shopkeeper turns his attention to Silver, offering him the sword at a discount. The claim that the sword can make an ordinary person a hero catches Silver's attention. Silver pushes the sword away, saying he's good. He maintains his cover, stating that a regular sword is enough for a gate guard like him. He tells the shopkeeper to sell the sword to someone else. Silver reaffirms to himself that he is not the hero, he is nothing more than a mob character. He remembers being swamped with work in his old world. Playing the game was the sole thing he could enjoy back then. He muses that while all the game's characters and its story are great, Charlie remains his favorite. He is confident that if events follow the original scenario, Alan and his comrades will save the world from the demon threat. He is thrilled to witness that epic story unfold with his own eyes. However, he recognizes the world's inherent dangers, with demons constantly attacking humans. To survive, he used his game knowledge to become strong, maxing out his level early on, just as he always did when playing RPGs. He trained for years using his game knowledge to max out his stats, but not to replace the hero. He declares himself someone who always respects the source material. He would never forgive anyone for changing the original story, content to just watch from afar. Returning to his post, Silver's face is glowing as he mutters that original works are the best, confusing his coworker. Modi, not understanding, simply invites him for a drink after their shift. Noticing his good mood, Modi asks if something good happened, and Silver eagerly agrees. A sudden cry for help interrupts their conversation. Silver and his coworker wonder what's happening. A menacing demon appears, attacking a fellow guard. Other guards wonder why demons are suddenly attacking. When his coworker asks what that noise was, Silver mutters the name of the event, the Wedge Day. He remembers this is an event from the game that occurs before the main story begins, where the hero easily defeats the demons. Modi rallies the guards, ordering them to hold the line until the hero arrives. Silver identifies the enemy as a level 1 demon, noting that it isn't very strong. He watches as the guards struggle against the creature. However, he knows it's still too powerful for an ordinary soldier to defeat. Silver weighs his options, deciding to act as a normal gate guard to avoid changing the story. Silver anxiously wonders when the hero will arrive. Modi charges forward, yelling at the monster. He is immediately struck down by the demon. Silver checks on Modi, who claims he was only grazed. The demon flees, and Silver curses that it ran away. Enraged that Modi was hurt, Silver yells at the demon to come back and gives chase. Modi is left behind, stunned by Silver's incredible speed. Meanwhile, in a peaceful clearing, Charles Orland relaxes by a stream, dipping her feet in the cool water while Alan and another companion rest nearby. She puts on her boot, ready to leave. After collecting herbs, Charles decides to go regroup with Alan. A sudden rustling in the bushes makes her pause. She cautiously calls out, asking if someone is there. Silver chases the demon through the woods, frustrated by its speed. He briefly considers cutting off one of its legs. He is suddenly startled by something. He sees Charles and is shocked. Hiding, he wonders what she could possibly be doing here. He panics, realizing Charles isn't supposed to be here according to the game. He tries to reassure himself that she won't die. His eyes widen in alarm at an unseen threat. The demon appears before Charles and her companion. It raises its claw to attack. Charles screams in terror. Silver furiously draws his sword, vowing to protect her. With a powerful move, Silver unleashes Zelencha's sword style, spinning top, instantly slicing the demon to pieces before a stunned Charles. Charles watches him, covering her mouth in disbelief. Silver sheathes his sword, standing over the defeated demon's remains. He turns to look at her. She looks back at him, her expression soft with gratitude. Silver frantically checks if Charles is injured, but she assures him she's fine. She then asks who he is. Silver panics, realizing he has revealed his strength. He nervously tries to deflect by saying he's just a gate guard. Charles clarifies that she wasn't asking about his job, but for his name. Charles earnestly pleads for him to tell her his name. Completely flustered, he introduces himself as Silver. He internally laments that his life has gone off script. Silver is in turmoil, realizing he's made contact with Charles, which he desperately wanted to avoid. He worries that defeating the demon in front of her has altered the game's scenario, even though he felt he had no choice. His panic is interrupted when an older man calls out his name. The man informs Silver that he has been directly summoned to the Holy Knight headquarters by the captain of the First Holy Knights. A shocked Silver questions the summons. The man, not knowing what Silver did, grimly jokes about picking up his bones afterward. Silver pleads with him to stop being so ominous. The man apologizes but warns him that the captain is notoriously strict, hoping it's just a lecture. Silver arrives at the formidable Holy Knight's headquarters. The guards confirm his identity and lead him inside. He looks up with a profound sense of dread, desperately wishing he could avoid meeting the person waiting for him. Inside an office, a woman in knight's armor is reviewing a report. Her attention is suddenly drawn to the window as she spots someone outside. A wide, excited grin spreads across her face as she presses herself against the glass to get a better look. Silver enters the office and is greeted by the woman. She thanks him for coming, and he internally notes her lustrous silver hair, deep blue eyes, and top-class figure. He recognizes her as Elder Sawite, the captain of the First Holy Knight Order and a romanceable character in the game. Silver nervously asks Captain Elder why he was summoned. She chides him for being slow on the uptake. This gives Silver a sinking feeling. He realizes she must somehow know about his true abilities. Elder cuts to the chase and asks him directly if he defeated a demon. The question leaves Silver stunned. Silver feigns ignorance, asking what she is talking about. Elder clarifies she's referring to the incident from a few days ago, where a demon's corpse was found torn to pieces. She explains that the only people capable of such a feat weren't present, and the demon had traces of being killed by a Komagami. She urges him to admit it, stating that a person of his strength should be serving the kingdom as a knight. Silver panics, knowing his peaceful days will be over if he admits the truth. He tries to deflect by suggesting the hero was the one who defeated the demon. Elder dismisses his argument as naive. She points out that while the hero must report their achievements, the slayer of this spider demon remains unknown. She tells him it's time to give up and quietly join the Knight's Order. Silver vehemently refuses. Silver stands his ground, arguing that there's no clear evidence, much to Elder's exasperation. She slumps over her desk, asking why he is so resistant to joining the Order. She points out the higher wages and benefits he would receive as a knight. Silver explains his objection is that he would have to work on missions with the hero, which he doesn't want to do. Elder questions his strange use of the word protagonist. Silver quickly dismisses it as nothing and firmly states his decision: he will not become a knight. Elder says that's very unfortunate. Seeing his resolve, she declares that she can no longer afford to be picky with her methods, much to Silver's alarm. Elder cheekily presents Silver with a forged letter of admission to the Knight's Order. Silver is aghast, insisting he never signed such a thing. Elder playfully suggests that as captain, she can get away with such forgeries. Silver expresses his dismay at her methods. She then reveals she was only kidding, stating she can't force anyone to join against their will. Elder then hands him a different scroll. Silver cautiously asks what the new paper is. Elder explains that she will give up on recruiting him if he does her a favor instead. She introduces an applicant named Braggio Birdley, who is set to take the entrance trials. With a determined look, she makes her request clear. She wants Silver to prevent Braggio from joining. Silver recognizes the Birdley name as a famous family, and Elder confirms his knowledge. She clenches her fist, calling Braggio an irredeemable scumbag. She explains that because of his noble status, she anticipates pressure from the higher-ups, making it difficult to simply fail him. That, she states with a pointed finger, is where Silver comes in. Elder elaborates on her plan. She will have Silver fight Braggio in a mock battle during the trials and defeat him soundly. Silver realizes he's being asked to sabotage the trial. He confirms that if he does this favor, she will stop trying to recruit him. With a confident smile, Elder agrees, saying she's counting on him. Leaving the castle, Silver feels dejected. He thinks about the bothersome job he's been given. He mulls over the fact that while Braggio isn't a character from the main story, any mistake could have unforeseen consequences on the plot. Silver decides he needs to gather information on Braggio since he knows so little about him. He resolves to keep his contact with the main characters to a minimum to avoid any more complications. Just as he steals his resolve, a hand taps him on the shoulder. Startled, Silver turns to see a young woman he recognizes, and he panics. The young woman seems confused by his reaction. She mentions she steeled her resolve and met with Charlie, which only increases his internal panic. Realizing his mistake, he frantically changes his tune, insisting he is happy to have met her. The girl, Silver, reminds him that he ran away after saving her, and that she's been looking for him ever since. Silver apologizes profusely, claiming he had urgent matters to attend to. She seems to accept his excuse. However, she then asks a pointed question that makes him flinch. How does he know her name is Silver? He quickly fabricates a story about being asked to guard nobles at a party where he saw her name on the list of attendees. Silver is crushed by the guilt of having to lie to her. Silver tells him he doesn't need to be so uptight or polite with her. She pouts slightly when he hesitates to relax. He awkwardly agrees to be more casual. Silver wants to thank him properly, but Silver tries to brush it off as just doing his duty as a soldier. She seriously insists, offering to do anything, even help with his work. Internally, Silver is overwhelmed. As a fan, he feels it is his duty to grant the wish of his favorite character. He relents, telling her he's conducting an investigation and asking if she would like to tag along. Their investigation begins in the red light district of Zelentia, where they seek information about the elusive Birdley family. Silver explains that the Birdleys bought their noble status with a large sum of money and are rumored to be involved in various illegal activities. Silver glances at Silver, taking in the serious nature of their mission. Silver senses Silver's uncertainty about their location and asks him what's wrong. Spotting a suggestive sign, a blushing Silver teases Silver about his intentions. Silver is completely taken aback and flustered by her question. With a smirk, Silver admits she was just kidding. She refocuses on their task, hoping they find Braggio soon. Silver shares what he knows about Braggio's decadent lifestyle of drinking and squandering his family's wealth. Silver ponders where Braggio might typically be found. His investigation is interrupted by his own hunger, leading him to believe they may have come too early. Silver feels embarrassed about his stomach growling, but Silver kindly asks if he's hungry. Agreeing that they are both hungry, they decide to look for a place to eat. Silver detects a pleasant smell and points them toward a promising restaurant. Silver enthusiastically enjoys a hamburger. Silver is surprised to see that the information he had about her love for hamburgers was true. She laments her inability to eat it properly, finding the situation a shame. Silver internally sympathizes, realizing it's because of her delicate features. Silver finds a silver lining, deciding that she still gets to enjoy the bun. She realizes this must be how Silver eats his hamburgers as well. Silver is utterly overwhelmed by how cute he finds her. With their meal finished and the day growing late, Silver asks about their next course of action. Concerned for her safety, Silver suggests he continue the investigation by himself. Suddenly, a loud commotion at the entrance interrupts them. The target of their investigation, Braggio Birdley, makes a grand entrance with his entourage, demanding a table. The restaurant staff recall his past disruptive and violent behavior. Braggio is furious when told there are no available tables, proclaiming his own importance. He throws his weight around, expecting his family name to get him what he wants. Silver quietly confirms with Silver that this is indeed Braggio. Silver observes that Braggio's behavior matches his terrible reputation. Braggio insults a staff member he pushed to the ground. Frustrated, he decides to find another restaurant. Just as he is about to exit, Braggio notices Silver and Silver. He changes direction and walks over to their table. He recognizes Silver, though he seems to get her name wrong, addressing her as Miss Charles Orland. Silver doesn't recognize him, but Braggio insists they met at a noble's party. She maintains that she has no memory of meeting him. Her rejection visibly angers Braggio. His tone turns menacing as he promises to make her remember him. Silver steps in, confronting Braggio with a confident, almost mocking expression which leaves the arrogant noble utterly stunned and fearful. Braggio attempts to flatter Silver, praising her renowned beauty and offering to take her to a fine restaurant. Silver simply shuts him down, stating she is not interested. Silver fumes silently at the man's audacity. Braggio persists, offering her fine food and drink, but she points out she is underage. Silver firmly repeats that she is not interested. His frustration grows, and he silently cedes at her dismissal. Braggio's attention shifts to Silver, questioning if he is Silver's bodyguard. Seizing the opportunity, Silver confirms that he is Lady Charles Orland's bodyguard. He thinks to himself that this gives him justification to act if needed. A slightly surprised Silver quickly goes along with the story. Braggio scoffs at the idea of Silver being a bodyguard, mocking his common appearance. Silver entertains violent thoughts in response to the insult. Braggio condescendingly asks if Silver's family is suffering from a lack of manpower and offers one of his own men. He feels guilty for putting Silver in this embarrassing situation. Braggio summons his own menacing entourage, boasting they are elite former knights. Silver is disgusted to see that members of the Holy Knights Order have sold out to such a man. Fed up with the situation, Silver decides it is time for them to leave. As they leave, Braggio taunts them about Silver's appearance. Silver stops and turns back, telling the stunned nobleman that he is mistaken about something. She confidently declares that his bodyguards are no match for Silver. Once outside, Silver apologizes for losing her temper, explaining that their insults towards Silver angered her. While touched, Silver worries that she may have provoked them. His concern proves valid as he senses they are being followed and confronts their pursuers. Braggio's bodyguards emerge from the shadows, eager to test Silver's bold claim. Internally, Silver welcomes the confrontation as a chance to gather information on Braggio. He confidently accepts their challenge. After effortlessly defeating the bodyguards, Silver demands they tell him everything about Braggio's misdeeds. The terrified men quickly confess to a litany of crimes, shocking Silver with the extent of Braggio's depravity. And as one of the men adds, that is not all. The defeated bodyguard reveals Braggio's sinister plan to join the Knights' Order and seize control by finding dirt on the captain. Silver realizes the grave danger this poses to the country, vowing to stop the plot from deviating from its natural course. He then offers the defeated men a deal, telling them he will not reveal their loss to him. He instructs them to go and make up a story for their master about winning the fight and to never speak of what truly happened. As they walk, Charles calls out to Silver. She asks how he became so strong, remarking that no regular soldier could have wiped out a demon so easily. He cheekily replies that it was due to years of tough training while hiding in the mountains. He describes it as a place crawling with monsters where he nearly died daily and advises Charles against such perilous methods when she asks if she could do the same. Silver confidently assures Charles that she will get stronger her own way, betting his life on it. Hearing his conviction, she smiles and says she will trust him. Their conversation then turns to food, with Silver suggesting they eat and his companion asking if he is paying. She playfully declares that of course he should treat her, as it is a nerd's duty to treat their favorites. The day of the Knights' Order entrance trials arrives, with an examiner announcing the first test will be one-on-one mock fights. Silver watches, resolute in his goal to thwart Braggio's plans. His thoughts are interrupted by Braggio himself, who mockingly greets the dull-looking bodyguard. Braggio mentions that his men told him they had dealt with Silver, but seems suspicious that Silver doesn't appear to have been beaten. Silver explains his lack of injuries by claiming he bought a costly healing potion, which only earns Braggio's scorn. Braggio proudly shows off his own top-shelf armor made of rare orichalcum, but their confrontation is cut short when an announcer calls both him and Silver to the training grounds for their match. Braggio laughs maniacally, calling Silver an unlucky fellow for having to face him. He arrogantly asks the examiner about the penalty for killing an opponent and is told it would mean disqualification. The examiner remarks that Silver has narrowly escaped death, and Silver seems relieved. Ignoring the warning, Braggio prepares to attack. He then dashes forward to begin the fight. With a simple flick, Silver disarms Braggio, whose sword clatters to the floor. A stunned Braggio tries to save face, claiming it was just a slip and that Silver got lucky. Silver finds his opponent to be a pain. He calculates that Braggio's armor makes him difficult to defeat without using lethal force. Braggio, undeterred, demands to know why Silver is not attacking. Silver offers to let Braggio attack first, an offer the flustered noble tries to reframe as a handicap he is giving. Silver calmly accepts, noting that Braggio's arm is too numb to swing his sword anyway. Before Braggio can process this, Silver strikes him with the flat of his blade. The blow sends Braggio flying across the ground. Scrambling on the ground, Braggio desperately claims he just tripped, an excuse Silver mockingly accepts. Braggio furiously insists he has not gone all out yet, and that Silver has just been lucky. Silver calmly listens to his opponent's excuses. Realizing this will not end otherwise, he decides to finish the fight he never wanted to have. Silver prepares to use magic enhancement, causing his sword to glow. Magic is explained as inner energy that can enhance a person to be as strong as steel or a sword to cut through iron. However, it is a power that most people live their entire lives without ever being able to sense. The ability to freely manipulate magic is what defines a hero and is necessary to combat the powerful nemesis of humans, demons. Silver identifies his opponent's armor as orichalcum, noting that it would be impossible to beat bare-handed. Braggio is taken aback by Silver's sudden shift in demeanor, questioning his change in vibe. The immense pressure Silver now radiates terrifies Braggio, who nervously asks what he is doing. Silver calmly states that he is attacking Braggio. He questions Braggio, reminding him that they must settle this with a fight. Panicked, Braggio accuses him of trying to kill him and dismisses him as a cheap guard for a bottom-tier noble. The insult visibly strikes a nerve with Silver. Silver's tone hardens as he asks if Braggio is referring to Charles, causing Braggio to realize his opponent has completely changed. Staring into Silver's eyes, Braggio is terrified by the killing intent he sees. In a desperate attempt to save himself, he offers to hire Silver with a large sum of money. Braggio continues his bribe, promising more money than Charles could ever afford if Silver just throws the match. Silver coldly asks him to decide between the money or the girl. He then warns Braggio not to move if he values his life. As Braggio begins to belittle Charles, claiming there are better women, Silver furiously cuts him off, commanding him to shut up. Braggio flinches back in fear from the intense anger. Silver warns Braggio never to speak her name again. With a roar, Silver unleashes a powerful technique, the Zelencha sword style, Sharataki lunging toward his opponent. The attack is a blur of motion, striking Braggio before he can even react, his face a mask of shock. To Braggio's disbelief, his supposedly impenetrable orichalcum-plated greaves are sliced clean through. Defeated and on the ground, he can only stammer out his surrender. Silver, considering the mission complete, decides it's time to report back to Elder. The arena announcer prepares to declare the winner. From the stands, Charles watches with a relieved expression, whispering Silver's name as he is announced the victor. Standing over his defeated opponent, Silver suddenly expresses his panic. He realizes he may have just shown off far too much of his true strength. At the knight's order, Elder thanks Silver for his help in successfully stopping Braggio from joining their ranks. She expresses her gratitude once more. She assures him that they will gather proof of Braggio's crimes to ensure he goes to jail, as his wrongdoings are unforgivable. Silver agrees, adding that it is time to make him pay for insulting Charlie, and tells the captain he is counting on her. As a reward for his help, Elder tells Silver she will no longer invite him to join the Knight's Order. Overjoyed, Silver exclaims his appreciation, believing his peaceful days will finally return. His reaction leaves Elder speechless, unable to believe he seriously doesn't want to join. She tearfully asks if he is truly, really sure, to which he enthusiastically confirms he is positive. Elder throws a tantrum, insisting that he must work for her as a knight and accusing him of breaking a promise. As she cries, he feels obligated to keep his promises. Silver internally recognizes this outburst as the spoiled brat elder event from the game and offers her a handkerchief. Sobbing, Elder accepts the handkerchief and promises to wash it. She pleads with him to at least continue his job as a gate guard. As Silver walks away, determined to lay low for a while, he overhears two other guards talking. They discuss another demon sighting, the third one this month, which catches Silver's attention. Silver muses that the increase in demon activity must mean the main story is starting soon. Having drawn unwanted attention to himself, he hopes his actions won't affect the plot. He tries to reassure himself by remembering that the protagonist, Alan, is destined to bring a happy ending to this world. Suddenly, a figure lands nearby, startling him. Silver has a bad feeling, sensing who it might be. He turns to see a woman with a mysterious smile. The imposing figure announces she's found him. She is Kaguya, the special grade hero, and she calls out his name, Silver. Onlookers are stunned to see the beautiful lady Kaguya. Kaguya says she's been looking for him forever. Desperate to avoid key characters, Silver tries to sneak away while she calls him darling. She grabs him from behind, asking why he's running off and leaving his dear wife behind, causing Silver to cry for help. Silver internally recounts what he knows about Kaguya. She's a non-standard being, the sole hero with the title of special grade, and a conquerable love interest. Known for her exceptional magic, she once wiped out a level 4 demon while laughing, making her humanity's trump card. He thinks of her as a real monster, but just like Elder, she knows about his true abilities. Ever since she found out, she's been fixated on him, even though he knows Alan is supposed to be her soulmate. Kaguya joyfully declares that fate must have brought them together. Silver mentions the recent increase in demon sightings. He suggests Kaguya should forget about him for now and prioritize her hero duties. Uninterested, Kaguya replies that being with him is far more charming. Silver can only sigh in exasperation at the so-called special-grade hero. Kaguya cheerfully claims she's his wife, while Silver insists he doesn't recall them becoming a married couple. She asks when they should hold the wedding, making Silver feel like he's talking to a brick wall, though he admits her offer is tempting. Kaguya excitedly suggests they visit an interesting cafe for some quality time together. She drags him away as he protests that they aren't a married couple. At the Holy Knights Order HQ, Elder reads a report about a cursed demon. She grows frustrated, learning that her knights have failed to catch it again. She laments that if Silver were with them, they might have been able to turn things around. Elder clutches the handkerchief Silver gave her. She thinks to herself that he's a strange guy. Yet even in a dicey situation, she can't help but expect him to do something about it. A flashback shows a desperate battle where a knight shouts that the hero has been taken down. Facing overwhelming enemy numbers, Elder orders everyone to fall back, declaring she will buy them time. During the fight, Elder knew her duty was to minimize the damage, as they had already called for Kaguya. With her own injury, she was unsure how long she could hold out alone. There was still time before Kaguya would arrive. She resolved to whittle down their numbers until then. She reflects that if they were mere level 1 demons, she could have handled them even while injured. However, facing level 2 demons was a tall order, and she soon stumbled from exhaustion. Elder steels herself, declaring that she has no intention of sacrificing herself for free, as her sword begins to glow with power. Elder lunges at a demon. The creature dodges her attack. It grins as it turns its attention elsewhere. It then dashes past her, and Elder watches in horror, realizing her comrades are now the target. As the demon lunges toward the cowering knights, Elder desperately yells for it to stop. Amidst the knights cowering in fear, one man stood looking straight at the demon. He wasn't wearing the symbolic silver armor of the knights, but rather battered shoes and steel armor. Silver mutters that they haven't even gotten to the main story yet. A stunned Elder begins to call out his name. Deciding it won't matter, Silver swings his sword, muttering incomprehensible gibberish as he cuts down the demon. Elder narrates from the present, recalling how he looked at that moment. To her, he was by far the most beautiful among all the knights she had ever seen. She explains that ever since that day, she has incessantly asked him to join the Holy Knights Order. Though he might deny it himself, she knows without a shadow of a doubt that she felt he was given that power to protect this world. The flashback ends with her confronting a flustered Silver. A knight is surprised to see Miss Elder personally at the attack scene. He reports that there are 2 victims, and the culprit was likely a cunning demon, leaving hardly any traces. He suggests calling the hero, but Elder informs him she has already done so, and tells him to continue his report while they prioritize the investigation. The knight continues, stating that both victims were women, found with bite marks where their blood had been sucked. Considering the lack of traces, he estimates the demon is probably over level 3. Elder is horrified, remarking on how awful the situation is. Looking at the gruesome scene, Elder clenches her fist in frustration. She orders all knights and soldiers on alert and tells the scout regiment to expand their search. Finally, she commands the knight to relay a message to Gate Guard Silva. He is to come to the Knights Order HQ immediately. Kaguya excitedly announces their first task together, calling Silva her darling, much to his dismay. He was already having a hard time with Kaguya following him around the previous day. Now being asked to investigate the demon attack, Silva feels he's got himself into a messy fix. Under the light of the full moon, Kaguya sits perched on a rooftop with a smug expression, while Silva stands watch in the background. The briefing took place several hours ago. Silva inquired if the culprit was a vampire, which Elder confirmed. She explained that vampire is the alias used for the culprit behind the demon attack. Elder detailed that 2 victims were found with their blood sucked dry and bite marks on their necks. Kaguya suddenly appears, snuggling up to Silva, which surprises and annoyed Elder. Kaguya smugly retorts that whatever she does, wherever she wishes, has nothing to do with Elder. Elder angrily pushes Kaguya away from Silva, calling her a lascivious wench. Kaguya calmly remarks that she was just linking arms with him. While Elder insists they are having a serious conversation, Kaguya calls her an uptight captain. Elder regains her composure and decides to get the conversation back on track. She reveals that the culprit is likely a shape-shifting demon evolved from a blood bat with a power level over 3. Silva realizes the gravity of the situation, noting that a level 3 demon would be difficult for even 10 skilled knights to handle. Looking directly at him, Elder declares that it is Silva's time to shine. Silva attempts to refuse, claiming he's just a gate guard only capable of running errands. Elder dismisses his concerns, stating they are short on manpower and allowing him to act independently during the investigation. The chance to act independently immediately piques Silva's interest. Elder notices his suspicious stare. He denies her suspicion but says he wants to ask something beforehand. Silva stares intently and asks if she has any ulterior motives. Flustered, Elder laughingly denies that she is trying to set her great filling up the outermost plan in motion by hoping he'll succeed and make it easier to invite him to the Knight's Order. Silva dryly points out that she just blurted out all the quiet parts of her plan. Silva considers that while he could normally refuse a simple investigation, he can't turn down an official order. He informs Elder that he accepts the investigation. Hearing this, Kaguya immediately declares that she will help him with it. Elder objects, exclaiming that Kaguya's presence would pose problems for her plan. Kaguya retorts that she doesn't care about that, she simply wants to go with Silva. Defeated, Elder concedes, reasoning that they could use all the help they can get. She tells both of them to attend the investigation meeting to get filled in on the situation. Silva and Kaguya arrive and announce their entrance. Upon entering, the other knights immediately wonder who the unknown soldier is. The knights whisper amongst themselves, identifying him as a soldier and questioning who the woman with him is. The chatter continues as they question why the special grade hero is with a mere soldier, assuming it must be Captain Elder's orders. Kaguya playfully notes how much they stand out, correcting Silva, who thought he was the conspicuous one. Once everyone is settled, a knight at the head of the table officially begins the investigation meeting regarding the vampire attack. The meeting begins with a summary of the facts: 2 victims in their 20s, their corpses found in the northern part of the capital. While another knight curses the demons responsible, Silva internally processes this new information. He realizes this case wasn't in the game's main story, meaning the game's main characters won't be involved and the situation will resolve on its own. After the meeting, Silva understands their assignment is to expand the search range and patrol the eastern gate at night. He turns to share the plan with Kaguya. He is surprised to find that she has fallen fast asleep. An imposing knight approaches Silva and demands to know which group he has been assigned to. Silva explains that he is with the guard regiment of the eastern gate. The knight is baffled, questioning Captain Elder's decision to pair a special grade hero with a mere soldier. The knight insists that Kaguya should team up with his unit, the Second Holy Knight's Order. Silva internally recognizes this as an attempt to steal credit from Elder. He calmly informs the knight that it is not his decision to make. Annoyed by Silva's response, the knight tells him to withdraw from the investigation, claiming it's beyond his capabilities. Silva calmly states that he is following orders from the captain of the First Holy Knight's Order. Enraged, the leader of the Second Order grabs Silva by his collar, shouting that they don't care about the First Order's authority. His subordinate tries to intervene, telling his leader that he is going too far. The leader shoves Silva away, declaring that the Second Holy Knight's Order will not be commanded by the First. As his men try to warn him to look behind, he is cut off. A cold voice tells him to shut his trap. He turns to see a furious Kaguya. Suddenly awake and visibly enraged, Kaguya appears, remarking on the knight's nerve for touching her darling. He shouts Kaguya's name in alarm. Before he can react, Silva is forcefully pushed aside as Kaguya moves with incredible speed. With a heavy thud, the leader of the Second Holy Knight's Order is slammed face-first onto the ground as Kaguya calmly tells Silva to stay back. Standing over the defeated knight, Kaguya smugly comments on his audacity for touching her husband. Silva looks on, concerned that she has gone too far. She then turns to a bewildered Silva and playfully apologizes, claiming she is bad at holding back. Silva can only stare, stunned that a special-grade hero would act so impulsively. As they patrol the streets at night, Kaguya finds the situation romantic. Silva asks her not to use her magic so suddenly, admitting it is bad for his heart. Kaguya reasons that it is only natural for a wife to protect her husband. While Silva concedes that she saved him, he still thinks she went too far. Unfazed, Kaguya smugly fishes for praise. Silva remains stoic, seemingly unimpressed by her words. Kaguya notices Silva's doubtful expression and assures him her feelings are genuine. She lists the things she loves about him, his caring nature and how fun he is to tease. And above all, she loves the true strength he hides from everyone. Kaguya expresses her desire to see Silva fight at full strength one day. He doubts such an opportunity will ever arise. She then floats into the air, telling him that with great strength comes great responsibility. Silva is left to ponder her words, confused. Floating gracefully against the full moon, Kaguya tells Silva to look, remarking on how beautiful it is. He looks up, his eyes reflecting her image against the night sky. Silva agrees that the moon is beautiful, but is confused by the comment. Kaguya then poses a serious, hypothetical question. She asks if he would believe her if she said she was born from the moon. Silva recalls what he knows about Kaguya's true nature. He remembers that as a child, she was chosen as a vessel for secretive research to harvest magic from the moon. This magic is what turned the young, crying Kaguya into the strongest. Back in the present, he confirms without hesitation that yes, he would believe her. Kaguya is taken aback by his immediate acceptance. Kaguya laughs, relieved and touched that he believes her. She offers a quiet thank you. Silva explains that believing she came from the moon just makes everything more romantic. Hearing this, Kaguya becomes flustered. Silva teases Kaguya for being sheepish for once. She brightens up and playfully calls it emotional abuse, though Silva retorts that she is not his wife. The light-hearted moment is broken as Silva's expression suddenly changes. He detects a strange scent in the air. Silva calls Kaguya's name, their conversation cut short. A scream echoes nearby. They both dash towards the sound. As they run, they both recognize a familiar, unsettling scent. As they arrive at the scene, they find a body on the ground. Kaguya growls, identifying the source of the smell, the filthy scent of demons. Silva lunges at a monstrous bat-like demon, crying out as he strikes it down. With a final shriek, the creature dissolves into a swarm of smaller bats. The demon escapes, scattering into a cloud of bats against the night sky. Silva watches them go, frustrated that he let it get away. He looks down, clutching a piece of cloth he managed to tear from the creature. He arrives at the clinic. Kaguya asks if he came back empty-handed. Silva reports the escape to Kaguya, while another woman confirms a life was saved. He blames himself for giving chase alone, but feels relieved that the victim is safe. Kaguya tells him not to beat himself up over it. Kaguya reassures him that if he could not catch the demon, no one could, and points to the cloth as a potential lead. Silva's spirits are lifted, and he confidently declares he will catch it next time. Kaguya is delighted by his motivation. Embarrassed by her teasing, Silva asks her to stop. Silva knows they must find the starved demons before another casualty occurs. His only lead is the piece of cloth with the demon's blood on it. Deciding to try a long shot, he asks Kaguya to smell the cloth. He reminds her that she can recognize a demon's smell. Kaguya looks confused, asking what he wants her to do. She explains that while she is sensitive to the scent, she is not a dog and cannot track them that way. Silver is frustrated that his great idea did not work. However, Kaguya trails off, implying she has another idea. Kaguya playfully offers to turn into a cat or dog to fulfill his wish, calling it her duty as a wife. She escalates her offer, suggesting she could lick his shoes or take off his clothes, prompting a flustered Silver to apologize and beg her to stop. He screams her name in desperation. A girl named Charlie approaches, asking what they are doing. She explains that she aced her written tests. Blushing, she admits she came looking for praise from Silver. He gives her a big thumbs up, telling her that's incredible. Charlie is pleased but acts modest about her achievement. Kaguya sizes up the new girl, asking who she is, which makes Silver internally panic about a potential rivalry. Charlie introduces herself as Charlie Orland, a friend of Silver's. Kaguya hesitantly introduces herself in return. Charlie is stunned, asking if she is the special grade hero Kaguya. Charlie explains that as a student of the Heroes Academy, she would naturally know of Kaguya. Silver remarks that Charlie is amazing for knowing who Kaguya is. Charlie reflects on how, in the original game story, these two never interacted, yet Kaguya seems so collected. Kaguya acknowledges Charlie's potential, while Silver is just happy to witness this rare event. Charlie directly confronts Kaguya, asking about her relationship with Silver. Silver panics, realizing that Charlie is now being drawn into his complicated situation with Kaguya. With a dramatic pose, Kaguya declares that she is Silver's most fragile, demure and beautiful wife. Charlie is left in shock by the revelation, questioning if Silver was ever single. Silver feels a mix of happiness and panic, realizing he needs to clear up the misunderstanding about Charlie's apparent jealousy. He frantically explains that Kaguya is just a friend, and that they are only business partners. Charlie asks where he should begin his explanation. Silver pivots, stating that they are going on patrols together to deal with the recent vampire attacks. Charlie mentions that the vampire case is known at the academy and offers to help. Kaguya smiles sweetly, but condescendingly asks what Miss Silver's friend could possibly do. Pouting, Charlie insists she can be of help, annoyed by Kaguya's emphasis on the word friend. With a clap of her hands, she begins a summoning incantation, calling forth her master to show herself. A brilliant light erupts as Charlie summons a Fenrir wolf. Kaguya watches with a thoughtful expression, remarking that it's an interesting summoning spell. Charlie explains that her elemental magic allows her to summon her contracted spirits at any time. She introduces the wolf spirit as Fenrir, whom she calls Ruru for short, and he licks her cheek. Silver notes that it's a cute name and that elemental magic is an incredibly useful skill for both combat and exploration. The wolf barks in response, and Silver looks on thoughtfully. Charlie is surprised, explaining that Ruru is a spirit that has been by her side since childhood and normally doesn't warm up to others. Silver remembers that in the game, Ruru would only become friendly to others after reaching maximum intimacy with Charlie. He happily rubs the wolf's belly, exclaiming how cute it is. Kaguya observes the interaction, remarking on how cute it is that Ruru is showing its belly. However, when Kaguya gets close, Ruru becomes guarded and starts to growl. Kaguya is taken aback, muttering that she didn't think it would reject her and calling it a very rude dog. Charlie giggles, clarifying that this is how Ruru usually behaves and that Silver is a special exception. Charlie adds that Ruru can easily track demons once it gets a clue from their scent. Silver immediately asks if Ruru can follow the demon using the smell from the cloth. She holds out the cloth for Ruru, who eagerly sniffs it. Charlie confirms that Ruru has reacted to the scent, and the wolf nods in agreement. Silver turns to Charlie and Kaguya to confirm they are ready. Both Kaguya and Charlie agree to follow his lead. With everyone on board, Silver decisively announces that they are chasing after the demon. A monstrous, cloaked vampire lunges at Kaoru Nakayama. Unfazed, Kaoru prepares to fight back, resolving to take the creature down using Zelencha's sword style. Kaoru leaps into the air and unleashes a powerful upper slash. The vampire is felled in a single strike. He looks on, slightly surprised by the outcome. As the vampire lies defeated, Kaoru wonders if it was truly that weak. His companion, Silver, appears and asks if he took it down. She praises his incredible slash. Flustered by her praise, Kaoru dismisses the compliment. Silver gets Kaoru's attention, and he agrees to investigate a rustling sound he also hears. They spot the likely source of the noise. They approach a door from which the sounds are emanating. Kaotaru and Silva are shocked by what they find. They discover a group of women who are bound and gagged. Kaotaru stares in disbelief, wondering who they are. A commander named Elder arrives and brightly congratulates Silva. She is impressed that Silva rescued the captives in addition to defeating the monster. Annoyed at being ignored, Kaguya points out her own presence. Elder then offers a quick word of praise to Kaguya as well. Elder plans to report that Kaguya, Charles, and Silva handled the vampire issue. Panicked, Kaotaru asks her to wait. He asks her not to reveal his involvement to avoid unwanted attention. Elder dismisses his concerns, viewing his success as another reason for him to join the order. Kaotaru frantically reminds Elder that she promised to stop asking him to join the order. She playfully feigns ignorance. Elder quickly changes the subject, promising him rewards for his hard work. Kaotaru is shocked, realizing he hasn't escaped her persistent recruiting after all. Elder presents Kaotaru with a reward for slaying the vampire and saving the captives. He asks about the women they rescued. She assures him they are all safe and have recovered quickly, speculating the vampire intended to keep them as emergency food. Something about the situation bugs Kaotaru. He doubts the vampire was intelligent enough to keep prisoners as emergency food and decides to seek more information at the church. As he zones out, Kaguya and Elder notice his strange behavior.